And we are live for episode number 25 of the Bronx Bomber Battle podcast. I'm your host, Matt, Luz, Luigi. And tonight we got the three-man crew. It's me, it's G, and it's Andrew. How are we doing, fellas?
What's up?
How's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good. I always hate to start off the show on a bit of a down note, but I might as well get right into it. Luis Severino shut down for 2 weeks because of a rotator cuff inflammation. Um, it's not the worst thing to hear. Everything came, like all his X-rays came back clean, so nothing serious. But he will be shut down for 2 weeks, and then he'll resume his throwing program. But it's being reported that he'll most likely miss the opening day. Obviously, he would have been the opening day starter. And who knows how much time he can miss. But guys, thoughts about this Sevy news coming out today?
I think maybe needs to be clarified a little bit, not to like blow you up or anything, but
G's
it was
blowing me up, everyone. G's blowing me up.
minimum 2 weeks that he's going to be shut down, and hopefully that's only like if he's doing better, then he could keep going. But like Brian Cashman was on with Mike Francesa the other day, and he was like, you hope it's only that, because then if it's not healed by then pretty much you assume that you have to do double the timetable going forward every time it's not, healed by something. So, I mean, it sucks, but I guess in terms of timing of the season, then this would be the best time to have it. And hopefully this is it, and he only misses a couple weeks in April.
Yeah, they said he's not going to pick up a baseball for 2 weeks, which, by the way, that's always such a funny phrase. Like, he's not going to physically pick. I mean, it means he won't throw the ball. But if you figure from yesterday, I believe it broke, 2 weeks from then is the 20th. Opening day is the 28th. And when you come back from that injury, you're basically starting from day one of spring training. So he needs another week or two at minimum to get into, regular season shape at that point. So it's not great news, but I think what's most concerning is like, what's the source of the inflammation? It wasn't like, he took a line drive off the shoulder and it just, needs a little time to rest. Like, it's probably from throwing hard. And, he had the highest fastball velocity the past few years. I mean, that's, you hope it's nothing more. I know they said the MRI was clean, but if it lingers, it's a much bigger issue.
Well, inflammation is more of like a symptom of something, right? So that's the thing, like you said, that I'd be concerned about, is that what's actually causing it.
Right, right. As long as it's not like a tear or something going wrong with his labrum later on, like, we could probably get past it. I mean, what did when the Red Sox shut down Chris Sale last year in like late August, was it the same thing? Was it just inflammation? Because he came back and pitched fine in the postseason.
I don't remember exactly. I could look it up real quick, but
I feel like part of that was because of how he always runs out of gas at the end of the season. So they were trying to like proactively get him some rest so he doesn't, fall off a cliff. But he also, I mean, it was his throwing shoulder, right? That he was actually a shoulder injury.
I believe so. Chris.
Anyway, I mean, the thing about this one that sucks, I mean, that just, yeah, it kind of sucks, is that it was supposed to be his first actual start, right? So, like, when he comes back, he's just starting from scratch, like from
the very beginning.
First day of spring training.
I mean, yeah, it would be almost, I think it'd be a little less worrying. But let's say if he had to start through, his first few innings of spring, and then this came out, you could say, oh, he hasn't thrown an actual game in quite a while. It could just be a body's reaction. But yeah, I mean, he was warming up for his first start of spring, and then all of a sudden, it comes out that he's not going to pitch today, and then all of a sudden now he's shut down for at least 2 weeks. So it's definitely a bit concerning, and it really brings questions to, you saw it all over Twitter. People starting to say, all right, should the Yankees go and try to get another starting pitcher? Because like the rotation, I think, a lot of people were a bit skeptical about the rotation to begin with, even with Sevy. If we have to deal with Sevy, or let's just say the month of April, Sevy's out. I don't think it'd be ideal to roll in, without adding anything else to this rotation. I mean, you have Herman, you have Loaiziga, who could, fill in that final spot in the rotation. But I mean, the question is, and I think the one guy that we've seen pop up a lot is, should the Yanks go out and try to get a guy like Gio Gonzalez instead of relying on the kind of minor league pitchers that they have right now?
Yeah, that's a tightrope type situation. The other name you've heard too is Dallas Keuchel, and that obviously is going to take a higher AAV longer term deal. I think that's an easier pass. But with Gio, he wasn't all that great when he got traded to what was it, Milwaukee last year. But at the same time, I mean, he does provide a proven veteran arm in the rotation. And with the Yankees' frail starting staff, I mean, if all 5 guys are healthy, it's one of the best starting rotations in baseball. But they've already proven it's not even the second week of March, and they're dealing with stuff. Having Gio on the roster, I mean, at some point you figure you're going to need him. If maybe Paxton misses a start or two, he slides in there. If something happens with CC again, it's good to have a guy like that just for depth.
Yeah, I think if I were to go out and get someone, I'd probably lean towards Gio, just because he'd be a lot more gettable on like a short term, 1 year or something like that kind of a deal. Ken Rosenthal reported that the Astros made multiple deals to Dallas Keuchel, like 1 and 2 year offers, but that wasn't really what he was looking for. So unless the Yankees found more money that they weren't willing to spend on someone else, then I just don't see it happening. So I mean,
Keuchel's going to ask for like 3 years and $60 million minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Gio seems like the guy, right? He's kind of been bouncing around a little bit, but like he's still a pretty solid pitcher. Like, and I mean, Severino, it's hard because if they go out and sign someone, but in 2 weeks he's fine and he's good to go, and he comes back, then
yeah. But then you have a guy like Gio in the bullpen instead of Luis Sessa, so even then it's not the worst case scenario. My concern though with that is that, do you have too many left-handed pitchers if you get him, or even should they surprise all and break the bank for Keuchel? I mean, you already have Happ and Paxton and Sabathia. I mean, has a team ever had more than 3 left-handed starters in a rotation?
Well, I mean, maybe, but I mean, that's their entire bullpen is hard-throwing righties, so that could also be part of your, teams would load up a lineup with right-handers, and then you get the bullpen if you get a lead, 5 innings into the game, and then you get all the righties coming out. Like
consistent, a couple nights in a row. I mean, that's true.
It's not an easy thing to plan for.
Gio last year had for both Washington and Milwaukee, had a 4.21 ERA, 171 innings pitched. So
it was a lot better with Washington than Milwaukee.
No, it was a lot better with Milwaukee, actually. It was 5 starts in Milwaukee. He was 3-0 with a 2.13.
Oh, okay.
In Washington, he had a 4.57 ERA, 27 starts. So
did he get any postseason starts?
Let me check. Postseason.
I know Milwaukee did that weird thing with Wade Miley where they started him for like an out.
He had 2 starts in the NLCS. 3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs. So I think he was kind of just used as like an opener, it seems like. I don't remember watching those games. But
he had a between the 2 spots, Milwaukee and Washington, had what I think it looks like it's like a just over 2 WAR. So I mean, he's a pretty replacement level player. Like for a late winter, spring training signing, it's kind of, like a useful player. Not much more than you're going to get than that.
Now, I was gonna ask about like Loaiziga and Herman, but I think we could get into them once we do, because we're gonna end the show with the starting pitcher positional preview. So we'll talk more about those guys later in the show. But yeah, I mean, I think a guy like Gio Gonzalez would be a great addition to this staff. I know I would feel a lot more confident, a lot more settled about the rotation, because he's kind of just like a Happ, right? He's kind of a guy that you look at his career. I mean, he's a few years younger than Happ, but you look at his career, he's been pretty consistent most years. You kind of know what you're getting from him. Yeah, I think he would just be a good guy to go get. He'd probably be really cheap. See, like that's the thing. Keuchel, like, look, Keuchel's probably a bit better than Gio at this point, but
I mean, he has a significantly higher ceiling. I don't know if he can achieve that, but like when he's on, he's
absolutely.
lethal.
But I mean, is he worth 15, 20 million a year for the next 3-4 years?
Definitely not.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
I think the thing about Gio that maybe puts the Yankees in a tough spot, like for the next 2 weeks minimum, like if he wants to start, like if he's telling teams like, oh, I only want to start, right? Like, how can you give him that assurance, right? Because if Severino's fine, but you already have him in the house, like, then you have 6 starters and you have to, juggle and, wait until someone gets hurt and then,
Yeah, but at a certain point, he needs a job, right? I mean, I think Neil Walker wanted to be the everyday second baseman for a team last year, and eventually, he broke down when no one was giving him offers into the middle of, or when did he sign? About this time last year, and the Yankees were like, "Fine, you want to be a utility guy?" I think Gio ideally would hold out to be a starter, but eventually, if there's really not many offers, he'll take the best. He'll probably want to be on a team that he has the best chance to win.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Here's my question though.
Go on.
Because we're going to get obviously into Sessa and Loizaga and Herman, but do you have any seller's remorse with Sonny Gray at this point? I mean, the one thing that they talked about was if you trade him away, you don't have a lot of depth in your rotation. Should something, let's say, happen to CC Sabathia,
what is depth? What is depth really though in this case? Like,
I think it's something that you have to have some kind of a backup plan that's not complete unproven kids. And I know both those guys had starts last year.
No, but I don't think this is a good backup. Like, this isn't depth. Like, this is depth like having a warm body just to have it. Like, Sonny Gray was like Brian Cashman was about as blunt as you could possibly be, right? I don't think I've ever heard him say so openly about a player like it's just not going to work out. Like, Sonny Gray, right? He was decent at times on the road. Literally couldn't pitch him at home. He had a 6-something ERA at Yankee Stadium. Like, it just it wouldn't have done them any good to be like, oh well, Sevy's hurt. At least we have Sonny Gray to go out there and throw up like a 5 ERA.
Well, here's a funny story, and I'm just totally playing devil's advocate here. I don't actually think that we should have kept him. The Yankees play, I believe, 6 of their first 9 games against the Orioles. Basically, the only team that Sonny Gray could beat.
He was the king.
If you had to roll through 2 runs of the rotation with him replacing Sabathia, you probably survive. Now, hopefully, you expect a guy like Herman or Sessa or whoever they give the start to be at least competent until the bullpen can come through. But I just thought that was funny that was like the one team he actually dominated.
Well, just to finish that hypothetical, you make it through the first 2 weeks of the season with Sonny Gray, but then you still have to have him on your roster basically until the trade deadline at least.
Right, but then he'd be in your bullpen instead of a guy like Sessa, and he was better. Anyway, I think this kind of leads into our next segment.
Pickles was in the news. This week. Basically came out and said, the title of this article is Sonny Gray says Yankees telling him to throw a shit pitch led to his struggles. Here's a quote from Pickles. I can't command my slider that well. I want to throw my slider in the dirt with 2 strikes, and that's about it. I don't have that type of slider like Tanaka's slider. His slider, the catcher will catch it, and the batter will swing and miss. If I get a swing and miss, the catcher is blocking it in the dirt. When I try to throw sliders for a strike, I get around it, and it's just a shit spinning pitch. I don't know how people throw sliders for strikes that are still tight, good pitches. I'm at 2-0, and I'm throwing a slider, and either I'm throwing a shit slider in the zone or I'm yanking it into the dirt, and it's 3-0, and I'm screwed either way. Look.
That's a mouthful.
Look, man. Professional athlete, when you're like a 28, 29-year-old professional athlete getting paid millions of dollars and you're complaining about having to throw a pitch, man, I feel no sympathy for this guy. Absolutely no sympathy. It's
no, and he had to take down Gary and Romine with him too. He's talking about it's in the dirt, so implying that we had catchers who couldn't block pitches in the dirt. What the hell is that?
It's just when he said in the quote, I don't know how guys throw sliders for a strike that are tight. It's just that's just like, dude, you're a competitor. You're supposed to work on your stuff, and you're supposed to get to that point. You know, like if your slider isn't good, you're supposed to make it better. Like I feel like this didn't make the like. Look, man, it does need to be said that like at a certain point, like once Gray was out of the rotation, like remember when they asked Larry, they were like, "Hey, you doing anything with Sonny to get it like back in the rotation?" He was just like, "No." Like, so I mean, that is kind of screwed. But I mean, man, the guy's just not a competitor. The guy, I mean, it really like Sonny Grays, like because you hear it all the time. That most of the time it's a cliche, like, "Oh, this guy couldn't pitch in New York." Sonny Gray is the definition of a guy that couldn't pitch in New York. Like he just, I mean, that kind of like he was a mental midget. And this quote, just him coming out and saying this, just confirms it. Like Andrew, you said before the show, the slider, the last few years, it's literally like the most successful pitch in baseball. It's literally like the most effective, successful pitch in all of baseball. And this guy is complaining about having to throw it.
It's like, I mean, we've gone, you know, we've been hard on Sonny Gray in the podcast, like when we were doing, you know, last season. I mean, he wasn't pitching well. And I think it's funny that you'd just be like, I mean, you know, I don't know what the Yankees, you know, what it's like, what they preach or what they're, you know, coaching them up to do. But like, you know, sliders are very successful, like you just said. So either maybe, and he's clearly aware that his slider is not very good. So maybe work on the slider if it's having success and they want you to throw it, or like just don't throw it, because as much as you could say they want me to do this or that, you know, Brian Cashman's not out there on the mound shaking off the catcher. It's Sonny Gray. So
right, we talked about this in our group chat. That, like no one's holding a gun to his head, making him throw that pitch. I mean, Larry can call it from the dugout. Gary or Romine can signal for it. He shakes it off. He wants to throw a curveball. Like that's it. Like, they may call it for a lot of sliders, but like if that's the axe he's gonna grind, it seems so frivolous.
Yeah, like why are you bringing that up right now? You know, like you're on a new team, like new beginnings, like but you're still just talking about the Yankees. You're still almost trying to put your shitty season on the fact that they're making you throw a slider. Like
yeah, and you know what? And Larry Rothschild gets a lot of shit, and a lot of times it's deservedly so. But I mean, you look at a guy like Nathan Eovaldi, right? I mean, he went on to Boston after the trade and was phenomenal for them this year, re-signed, and who knows what they're going to get from him. But he said in his World Series press conference that, like, because of Larry Rothschild's impact on him when he was with the Yankees, like, that's what helped turn his career around. So, I mean...
so thanks a lot, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, that but I don't know. I'm just waiting for Yankees Twitter to implode if he has a good start or even a full good season with Cincinnati. He has his college pitching coach, Derek Johnson, who was with him at Vanderbilt. That's obviously a comfortable situation for him, and I expect him to be, you know, a competitive pitcher for the Reds. And just, you know, Yankees Twitter is going to melt down, like bitching about why we traded him and like lose perspective altogether.
Sonny Gray is going to turn in Cy Young performance after Cy Young performance in 20.
And Yankees fans are going to have aneurysms.
In one of the most like media friendly, maybe for a player, right? Like in terms of scrutiny, like national media, how much attention are they paying on an everyday basis to the Cincinnati Reds? Like
the who?
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. It's just annoying, right? I mean, we obviously aren't fans of Sonny Gray because he wasn't a good pitcher for the Yankees, but like, it's just annoying. Like, what's your target audience? Because Yankee fans don't like you, you know, and coming out and being like, oh, the Yankees maybe do this or that. Like, it's just not like, it's just like him airing his grievances just to air them. Like, and even, I mean, there's an article on CBS after he said all those things, basically saying like, you know, Sonny Gray said the Yankees made him do this and that. And he, you know, even referred to a start when he pitched in relief, and he pitched, you know, pretty, you know, a good relief outing. And he said that he came out and threw only cutters, and, you know, the stats don't even back that up. They said half of them were breaking balls. So
right, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it was written by Mike Exissa, who moonlights over at River Red Blues as well. The graph that he put showed that I think Gray's curveball rate was basically in line with his entire career. That, you know, he said, I don't throw this pitch anymore. The Yankees wanted me to throw more sliders, and so it had the sliders in one color going down, percentage wise, and the curveball's going up. Like it was a mirror image of his entire career usage, and he bitched about it. Mind boggling.
Yeah, so prior to being traded to the Yankees in 2017, Gray used the slider 14% of the time. Since the trade, he's used the slider 16.2% of the time. So, like, not like a drastic difference, just using your slider slightly more.
I mean, he said it himself, right? He said it himself that it's not a very good pitch. So I don't know how you could be so aware of that fact. Have someone in your ear being, or I guess supposedly saying, we want you to throw it more, and then just be, I don't know what, like you didn't work on it. Like what happened in between those two things, like.
And that's why Yankee fans don't like Sonny Gray, not because he didn't pitch well. I mean, that obviously comes with the territory, but because he just had a shitty attitude. He's not a competitor. Like remember that start when he got blasted, or maybe even he came in relief.
Which one?
I don't remember. The one against Baltimore where he left the mound smiling.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was brutal, man. Like how do you do that? You're pitching in one of the toughest media markets in the world, not even just in the sport, in the world, and you go out and you have an absolute dud performance against the worst team in baseball, and you're laughing it off like it's a joke.
Yep. Well,
good riddance.
That's enough Sonny Gray talk on this podcast for forever. Actually,
forever. We're never talking about him again.
Never again. Fuck Sonny Gray. Some news and notes from spring. Aaron Boone once again reaffirming everyone that it's either Luke Voit or Greg Bird at first base for the Yankees, but not both. Quote is, it's tough for me to envision us having two first basemen, especially when I feel like DJ would be that guy that gets backup reps there. So, Boone's standing firm on the fact that one of those guys is probably going to start the year in AAA. Hopefully it's Greg Bird.
Yeah, well, it's hard to, even he said it, they want DJ LeMahieu to play. The number he used was 145 games. So that's basically every single day for even someone who's penciled in as a starter, with a full season's worth of off days. So, right. I mean, the only way it would have maybe worked is if you had John Carlos Stanton be the everyday left fielder, and then you could rotate a DH. But then it would, I don't know. It's like you said, it's probably not going to happen. So
what are you gonna do? You're gonna DH Greg Bird? I mean, unless he's hitting the ball, outside his mind. No, is that the guy you want occupying the DH spot?
No. Well, the other part of that, what he also brought up was that they like Tyler Wade's versatility, but that doesn't, because he plays infield and outfield, but that really doesn't have any bearing on
Tyler Wade's versatility because he strikes out looking and swinging.
Right, he's fast and can catch the ball. So,
I think we talked about this on one of our previous podcasts as well. That they have to give Wade one final shot, and then they know one way or the other, it's never going to happen, or wow, we just needed to wait for him to come around, and here's the player we thought he was all along. And I think Bird's in the same boat, but for different reasons. His more so to injury.
Bird's at least showed a bit more on the MLB level than Tyler Wade. I'll give him that.
Right.
Right now, Luke Voit, who, although he said, that Bird, Aaron Boone said that Bird might have the edge defensively, but that Luke Voit probably had an edge overall. And I think probably the only way that Bird would overtake him is just to hit out of his mind all spring, right? I mean, Voigt's 4 of 14. He's got a couple home runs that were absolute bombs. And, Bird had a pretty nice home run as well. He's, 7 out of 18. So he's batting over 300. It's just, I don't know. I don't really know what that number is, right? How good would he have to be to actually overtake him? I'm not sure we would.
It's probably more eye test than anything else. And we talked about this. The Yankees are probably best suited if Bird is the first baseman, and not because Luke Voit didn't earn it, but because Bird is so good that he rips that position. He pulls it away from Voit. He provides an additional left-handed bat, which they don't have much of, and the only way he is the starting first baseman is if he's so good that you can't not give it to him. That's good for our
Well,
offense.
it's like we talked about ceilings before. It's like Bird's ceiling is much higher than Voigt's.
Well, we don't know that. I mean,
I
Voigt
think
could
it
be a
is.
late
I think
bloomer.
it is.
Yeah, but I mean, not that we have so much track record or data for Greg Bird for the last like 3 years, but I mean, Luke Voigt's been up and down. He was with the Cardinals. He was up and down. He has some favorable metrics. He hits the ball hard, but I mean, is he going to hit 335 like he did for the Yankees over a 40-game stretch? Probably not.
You know what? Look at his minor league
28.
splits. He hit at or around 300 every level of the minor leagues, and then at the major leagues. That's a positive trend there.
I definitely want it to be Luke Voigt. I definitely want him to continue his torrid pace that he set last year, but
sure,
I don't know.
People, every time someone does this, people just think automatically of Shane Spencer. So the home run dispenser. I just last thing on that. What was I going to say? Bird. No. Yeah. Never mind. Just go.
Well, and that was fun. I'm just kidding. More news and notes. Estevan Florial getting his first spring home run, a 3-run shot. One of the Yankees' top prospects. Is he the Yankees' top prospect? Is he our top prospect?
He's the only one.
He's
our number one prospect, and the only prospect we have in Major League Baseball is MLB Pipeline's top 100.
Damn, how times have changed. We used to have like 8 in there. Adam Ottavino looking nasty today. He had if you go on Pitching Ninja, he has 2 clips on there right now. One's a slider to former Yankee great Shane Robinson, and the other one's a 94-mile-per-hour 2-seam fastball. Like I said on, I think it was the last episode of the episode before, like Adam Ottavino was just he was on Pitching Ninja like every week, and he's continuing that trend in 2019. It's good to see.
It's actually ridiculous because I wasn't watching him pitch every day in Colorado, but they straight up look like wiffle ball pitches.
Yeah, I know. Like a good old junk ball pitch. Well, you guys want to get into the pinstripe preview for the starters, the rotation?
Yeah.
All right. Well, written by our very own Spencer Schultz. Shout out to Spencer. We'll probably do the infield next week, and then the outfield and bullpen up until the regular season. But tonight we're going to start with the rotation, being that we were talking about Sevy, we're talking about we're just talking about the rotation. Well, now that Sevy's probably missing April, let's just say, the rotation looks a bit different. But overall, it's Sevy, Cece, Tanaka, Happ, Paxton. But the big question right now that surrounds us is who's going to replace Sevy? Are they going to go get someone? Are they going to give it the reins to Sessa, Herman, or Loaiziga? But I'll just start off with this question first. How do we feel about the Yankees rotation as a whole heading into the 2019 season?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I'd give you a warmer response.
With this whole Sevy news, just puts a wet blanket on everything, man. It just puts a cloud over everything.
See, if we had the foresight to know how the whole thing with Sevy plays out, I mean, maybe it just changes my decision. Like we talked about it, the inflammation with not knowing the source is concerning. I mean, if he's back by the end of April and pitching fine, and then we don't hear about the injury for the rest of the year, then we can we could tread water for 3-4 weeks. It's fine. I think I have enough faith in the young kids to at least be competent, and then the offense to keep us in games. The thing is, we don't know, and CC, who knows what you're going to get from him too. I kind of thought that he'd be ready to go and just deal with his suspension first 5 games of the season. But if he's going to start the year on the injured list, I think you're not allowed to serve your suspension until you come back. So he may be out for an additional week on top of however long it takes him to get into playing shape.
Yeah.
The rotation definitely lacks significant depth right now, and the outlook kind of rests a lot in Paxton and Tanaka's hands right now. I think those guys need to really, really step up and carry us for the first month.
Yeah, because I think what you're going to get with Happ, right? Like, yeah, CC. Look, I think I said before last year, like I was very skeptical on if CC was gonna, continue doing what he was doing. Have an ERA in the threes, just being a really solid pitcher, and he did. But now going into 2019, I'm probably just as skeptical, maybe even more skeptical than I was last year that CC is going to give us anything. Like I expect him to maybe give us 12, 15 starts, probably miss some time here and there. Like he's going to be doing a lot of stuff for ESPN. That doesn't like. I'm glad he's doing that, but like I'm kind of just thinking in the back of my mind, like, yeah, he's kind of
he's in pre-retirement.
He's kind of checking out of being this whole pitcher thing. So
I think
I don't know.
The injuries are concerning, but I was going to say like a question since I'm looking at the actual April schedule. But I was going to say like the way it usually works out, what is it that they don't need the fifth starter only once, or can they go more than once? Like if
you definitely don't need it the first pass because you have the extra off days for opening day, and then they have Detroit's is that Detroit series home or away?
I'm not sure, but isn't usually how it goes with like opening day? It's like they'll have the first opening day game, then they'll have an off day. Then it's
right to account for rain.
Yeah, then it's like 2 games. Then you have another series, and then sometimes you have another off.
Right. Well, because then when the Yankees go to Baltimore, it's I believe the Orioles series. I think they start with 6 games on the road, so they have the opening series breaks as well. And the Yankees have 4 off days over the first 20 days, I think. So they only, they may only need Severino 3 starts, 4 starts, which is you could stomach that, assuming he comes back healthy, but you don't know.
Right. So, I mean, I think my thoughts in terms of April and overall are different because obviously Severino's, gone now. So presumably for most of April. And I mean, their schedule for April isn't like murder, but I mean, these are games that count. So it sucks if you have to run someone out there like Sessa, who I guess we're kind of assuming that he'll make the club, right? I mean,
he has to. He has no options left.
Right.
They're not just going to cut him out of camp.
Like CC, that's a tricky situation because it's not like he was going 7 innings anymore anyway. But like he's got the suspension and they're bringing him along slowly because of all the various health things. So having to replace 40% of your rotation for a month, any month of the season, definitely sucks. But I think once you get into a groove, knock on wood for Severino to come back healthy. Like I think it's all. There's a lot of really positive stuff. I mean, Hap was really good, coming over after the deadline. And Masahiro Tanaka, maybe flies under the radar because he didn't turn into like the dominant ace we thought he might. But I mean, regular season wise, other than the 1 year, 2 years ago, he's been really good. So like, I think there's lots of things that could be really positive if the health cooperates, but when does that ever happen?
Yeah. How are we feeling about James Paxton? How are we feeling? How do we think he's going to do his first year with the Yankees? Because I feel like he's a major wild card in this rotation. Like if James Paxton is pitching like an all-star, let's say for the first 2 months of the season, like we could go without Sevy for a month, right? Like we could live with that because he's a guy that has the potential to be like that kind of. Maybe not a number 1 guy, but a great number 2 guy. So
if you have a dominant top of the rotation shutdown arm for a month to cover Severino's absence, I think you're fine. You're always in questionable territory with the 4th and 5th starters anyway, unless you're the 2018 Houston Astros who just rolled out 4 aces. I feel like if you have the assurance of 1, maybe 2 lights out guys at the top of the rotation, you just make do with the other 3 days.
I mean, James Paxton was really good for a lot of last year. And I mean, it might not be as impressive on paper as the Astros going to get Garrett Cole and he shows up throwing 100, but like, it's a really good pitcher. So, it's not like the flashy, we traded for an ace move maybe, but I mean, he's really good. So if Severino comes back, then you roll out like, Severino and Paxton and then Tanaka. Like, I think Paxton just makes the top of the rotation much deeper than it was in the last couple of years. And he's a lefty, which is a bonus.
Gotta have those lefties. to continue to talk about, Severino and having to replace him, the three main guys, right? The three main young Yankee pitchers that are the candidates to replace him are Sessa, Loaiziga, and Herman. Which one of those guys do you have the most confidence in?
For me, I'm going to say Domingo Herman, and I think it's because he showed some really, really nice flashes last year. I know things kind of got away from him, and he had that stretch where he gave up a first inning run like 5 or 6 starts in a row, right? But he did lock down afterwards, and I remember his first appearance, or one of his first appearances, when he came in relief of Montgomery after his UCL tear, and he threw, 4 no-hit innings, and then backed it up with 5 no-hit innings in his start after that. He has some electric stuff that he just needs to hone. And, the only way he could do that is by consistently facing major league hitters. I think he's the guy who has the highest ceiling and unfortunately also the most likely to implode. So it's hit and miss with him, but I have to put my faith in a guy like that.
Who was the third guy you said? You said Loaiziga and Herman, and who, please?
Luis Sessa.
Luis Sessa.
All right.
Who's that guy?
I'm not even going to bother with him.
Yes, I had to put him in there because he's a candidate, but I think this is really a question of between Loaiziga and Herman.
Yeah, I mean, I think, based on the limited time that we saw him, people would just be like, Loaiziga, he came up, he pitched well, and, then he got hurt, which was crappy. But, I think if you believe in, the experience, right, second year, springboard effect, there's a lot to really like about Domingo Herman. He got a pretty good body of work as a starter facing major league hitters. He has really good stuff. It's not like he's out there trying to trick people with a 90-mile-an-hour, J-Hap fastball. He's got really good stuff. He has a bunch of stuff on tape now. And I think, I would probably go with him if I had to go with any of them, based off that experience alone.
Yeah, I actually
I'd probably go Johnny Lasagna for what it's worth. But go on, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say on the Herman note, I went back and I found a tweet of mine a couple of weeks ago from last summer, and it was something along the lines of, I don't know if Domingo Herman right now is 2016 Luis Severino or Michael Pineda, just based on the way he had such dominating stuff, and you didn't know, the results weren't quite there. I feel like that's still the to be determined part this year. He's either going to blossom into a young arm who really puts it all together and can be lights out, or he's just going to be that guy who always had all the talent in the world and just sucked.
You really invoked Michael Pineda on a Yankees podcast in the year 2000.
But tell me on a raw stuff. But on a just a raw stuff standpoint, specifically on a slider, they're very comparable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's my thing between Johnny Lasagna and Herman. I just think Johnny Lasagna is just a more steady pitcher. I just think that it's more likely that if he got 10, 15 starts, he's just going to be consistently decent for you. Herman might have 2 or 3 starts where he's just lights out. But then he'll have 2 starts where he can't make it out of the second.
It's terrible.
So it's Johnny Lasagna's thing was always, coming up through the system, it's injuries. So, it might be good with, having to use him for a month, but you couldn't even predict that, right? He made, 2 or 3 starts and then he was hurt. So, and he missed a good chunk of the season after he got hurt. So,
yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how I really don't think they're going to go and get Gio. I don't know. I just think this front office isn't going to do it. I think they're going to rely on either Loaiziga or Herman. But I just wanted to touch on more about Tanaka a little bit. He really does. Tanaka really does get a lot of hate for a guy that, you look at his 5 years, he's had one bad year with the Yankees. And yeah, it was bad. It was one of the worst years from a starting pitcher that I've seen. It was,
and yet had a dominating postseason to back it up.
Yeah, exactly. He was awesome in the postseason, but yeah, that was his only year with an ERA above 4. Every other year, his ERA has been below 3.75, which is
what's crazy is that the 3 best starts of his career arguably were that year too. He had the Maddox game at Fenway, and then he had the 215 strikeout games in the same year that his ERA was almost 5. Like, that's unreal.
Yeah, like, so he still showed flashes in that year, but just those home runs, man, like they keep on coming.
I mean, that's Masahiro Tanaka. I feel like, for all, like, there was a little bit of legend, right? Coming out of Japan, he was this young 20-something. He throws super hard. He has all these pitches, like, and maybe he didn't develop into like the ace that the Yankees thought he would, but I think he's done a lot of good and a lot of right by the fan base. Like, even as simple as, like, he wrote that letter, right? I'm coming back, honor my contract. I want to win a championship. Like, but I mean, metrics will show, like, his four-seam fastball is just, oh God, it's a train wreck. It's really bad. Like, it gets pounded into oblivion every single year.
That's what happens when you throw low 90s in this MLB, like, low 90s is being generous, by the way, with that fastball, because it just keeps going down.
Yeah, I mean, tip of the cap, though. I mean, so
I love me some Tanaka, though. I do. I really do.
And then, there was a story that we read, I think it was Newsday from today, that he was, I guess, tinkering at the end of last year and worked on more so a knuckle curve. So, I mean, I'm excited. Like, I don't know. I just like the guy. I mean, he's not like the ace we thought, but he's a really good pitcher.
Yeah, so, like, I'm a type of baseball fan where, like, I love, like, I'll almost, like, like, I love watching great pitchers pitch, like, I could just sit down. Like, I love watching when Tanaka's on. He's, like, one of my favorite pitchers to watch. Maybe my favorite pitcher to watch on the Yankees, because he's just such, like, his craft. Like, he's just such a master of his craft. He doesn't have overpowering stuff. He's just a great pitcher. But, I mean, yeah, his four-seam fastball is just – that thing gets hosed.
The guy's a gamer, though. Like, you could tell, like, for, when he had that horrible season, but he still showed up at the end and in the playoffs. Like, he's just nails. Like, he wants to show up for those big games.
Yeah. So,
brief Masahiro Tanaka appreciation.
Well, listen, we did over-unders last year for all of our previews, and we did them one player at a time. There was a little much, but do we want to throw some kind of lines out for the 5 guys?
We could. I could come up with a few on the spot right here. We should really just go. I mean, should we just go ERA to keep it simple for all these guys?
Fair.
That works.
ERA. All right. So let's see. Let's start with Sevy. Over or under 3.5 ERA this year for Sevy.
Oof. It's probably right about where I'd put him, just because you don't know where he's going to be with the injury.
For context, he was 3.39 last year. It's 2.98 the year before.
Yeah, but that 3.39 was like 5.5 the second half of the year.
His last 14 starts last year, he was 6-6 with a 5.67 ERA.
Yeah,
I'm going to say under. I'm going to be a little aggressive here. He did come into camp, dropped a lot of weight. It's a big if the shoulder's okay after he rests it, but assuming it is, he'll get back to where he needs to be. So I'll say under.
Yeah, under, because I think even if he's not as good as he was in the first half, he won't be nearly as bad as he was in the second half.
I'm going to go slightly over, maybe like 3.6, because I just think he's still going to deal with a few of those struggles beginning of the year. But I think he'll have a better second half than he did last year, like a much better second half than he did. But I think his first half might be a little bit rough. So I'll say just over. But,
okay.
I don't know. Now Tanaka. Let's go over and under 3.8 ERA for Tanaka.
I'm going under.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah, because even his worst season, which was like clearly the outlier of his career, but that was like 4.7, but he hasn't even been at 3.8 in any of those seasons.
That 4.7 year, I think he had, if someone has the game log in front of them, please chime in, but I think it was like 7 starts where he gave up 6 or more earned runs. Like that's unheard of. And he's not going to be that guy again.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean it's a brutal stat right there, Andrew. I don't even know why you had to bring that up. So wait, you said how many starts he had more than 7
I
runs?
think he had like 7 or 8 starts that year where he gave up 6 or more earned runs.
That
Because
was,
there was some really, really dominant starts, and then had those starts where he'd give up 3 home runs and like just get absolutely hosed.
Yeah, I'm counting really quick. I'm counting 6 starts where he had more than 6 earned runs. So yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the one that caught my eye right away was just the Houston start. Oh my God, this is like the worst line of all time.
Oh, that was the Derek
The
Jeter
Jeter,
game,
yeah,
right?
the Jeter
Yeah.
night. Inning and 2/3, 7 hits, 8 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 4.
Springer took him
I mean,
deep twice,
look,
right?
it happened right off. It happened on opening day
It
too.
was Sunday night. No, it happened on opening day that year against the Rays. But yeah, Sunday night baseball, Jeter night. Tanaka just took a big piss all over that night. It was so bad.
That's Mother's Day too, I think.
And well, so there was 6 starts where he gave up 6 or more, and then there was at least 3 more where he gave up 5. So
yeah, it's brutal.
All right. Well, let's move on to James Paxton. Now, James Paxton, I'm going to go over and under 3.7 ERA. He was 3.76 last year, 2.98 the year before, 3.79 the year before that. Career ERA is 3.42. So over or under 3.7 for Paxton his first year with the Yankees.
It's an easy under for me. I'm a big believer in the Big Maple. I think he's going to have the best season of his career, assuming he can stay healthy. I think he's primed for. CC Sabathia, they said on his podcast that he's a guy who could win a Cy Young. I don't think he's going to be top 3 or 4 on the Cy Young voting by the end of the year, but he's going to have a big year.
I'm going to punt on this one and go even because I mean, yeah, I'm kicking it back to you guys. I think he's really good, and I think that you can be really good and still have a 3.7 ERA.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'm going to go under too, though. I think he's going to have a really good year for the Yankees. Jay Happ, the 36-year-old, the guy the Yankees re-signed for 2 years, 34 mil. Over or under, let's see, what should I put Jay Happ at? Now, with the Yankees last year, he had a 2.7 ERA and 11 starts. His total ERA for the year is 3.65. Over or under, I'm just going to go straight 4. Over and under 4 ERA for Jay Happ. I'm going over. I don't think he's gonna have a good year, to be honest. It's me being skeptical, but I don't think he's gonna have a good year for the Yanks. I'm gonna go like a 4.3 ERA.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the one move that I feel like they almost had to make just so they had starting pitching. They had a veteran another veteran in the rotation, but I feel like he really maximized his potential with. He didn't lose a game in the regular season last year with us.
Yeah, 7-0.
And he hasn't looked good so far in spring. I know it's spring; it doesn't mean much, but I'll say over as well.
I'll go under. I'll go optimistically under. I mean, even if it's like whatever 3.8, 3.9, but like
I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Unless I mean, it's not like he's bleeding velocity. Like that's not his concern right now. So unless he just ran out of gas over this one off season when he was so good last season, I can't see it jumping that much.
Yeah, I know if Alex was on the pod, he would probably say under because remember he was like the number one J Happ fan last year. He was so happy we got J Happ. He was calling for that trade for a while.
You know what's funny too? If you go back to our podcast before the All-Star break last year, we trashed J Happ because that was the only All-Star that the Blue Jays had.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing that they were like, oh, the Yankees going to trade for J Happ, and I mean, to be fair,
it was before it was like 3 weeks before the trade deadline when we were just talking about the All-Star lineups. Like every team has to have a representative,
because he got in over Snell, and we were just I was so mad about that Snell didn't originally get in. He eventually got in, but
J Happ with the Blue Jays, and I mean with the Blue Jays, he pitched to a 4.18 ERA, so it's not like I can see why we'd be down on it then, but I mean, I feel like the thing that we always say for players like come from situations like that, where it's like, oh, he was energized, right? He was energized by the playoff push.
I mean, it's the same thing when he was with Toronto when they were good. He had some of his best years there too, so I'll buy that.
Great. Now the big man, CC. I'll do the same for him as Hap. Over or under a 4 ERA for CC this year. He was at 3.65 last year, 3.69 the year before, 3.91 the year before that. So he's been under 4 the last 3 years. Will he continue that trend?
I'm going to say even. I think he'll be right there. I'm concerned just because of all the health things he's had going on, and not that he's going to dip out on the Yankees, but he's got the ESPN thing, and I feel like he's ready for retirement. So I could see him pitching really well, and I could see him just as easily just running out of gas.
Yeah, I'm going to say under, but that's not indicative of him having a really good year. I think we touched on it. He's probably going to miss a good amount of starts. I think he'll be effective when he's on the field, but I don't expect him to make more than 20 starts this year.
Right,
yeah.
So we should have did an over-under for innings instead for CC.
Yeah,
we could do a bonus one. I'll go slightly over for CC's ERA, but over or under 15 starts for CC this year.
15 starts is what, 3 months, 4 months?
That's that's basically usually a guy has 30 starts, give or take. So, 15 is pretty much half of, basically 3 months worth of starts.
I'll go over that, but I also think that at the last couple of years, I feel like Brian Cashman even acknowledged it at some point, right? They have CC, but they pretty much admit he's going to spend at least one DL stint, right? They manage his knee things, he made 29 starts last year, 27 the year before that, but that was still with the DL stint where they just, they have to manage all these things. And I think even with this heart thing now, I think that it's possible that they take it even lighter on him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'll say over 15, but not much, 17, 18.
Yeah, I'm gonna go slightly over as well. I think he'll be just above 15, but the last few seasons. He's made 29 starts last year, 27 the year before. I don't think he's gonna be close to that this year. I think
I could see them
maybe be at 20.
Trying to save the Yankees are very health conscious, and Aaron Boone rests players.
Yes,
maybe when we think he doesn't need them, but I could see the Yankees based on his extensive injury history and all that stuff, just trying to save his best bullets for the playoffs.
Absolutely.
All right, and the one thing that we didn't touch upon at all tonight is that as part of Cashman's statement that we're probably not going to look to the free agent market right now to replace the holes in the rotation, is that he said he's going to wait until after the draft in June. And a big reason for that is you have to – it's 40-man management. It's understanding if you got a young kid in the system that, you can rely on 3-4 years down the road, that you can trade one of your top arms in AAA now for, because if you're planning for the future, you have a guy who's a year or two away. He may be more expendable if you have another, this awesome kid who's 3 or 4 years away. So I think the Yankees will add someone else. June or July area. The sexy name that everyone wants to talk about always is Madison Bumgarner. But Luigi, I know you're a big fan of that. I don't see them ultimately getting him.
Why would you even acknowledge that section of the
Look, to be fair, when I wrote an article last year, I think it was in April, that the Yankees should go after Mad Bum. And I think I put 3 disclaimers in the article. And one of them was all right, the Giants would clearly have to be out of the playoffs. And I think another one was, I think it was either about Sonny Gray continuing to suck, which did happen. But, the Giants were kind of just they were kind of close, all year, right? They were really never out of the playoff race. So that kind of just, the Giants would have had to sucked for it to happen. And even then it would have been tough, but
right. No, I agree with you that a Bumgarner trade made more sense last year, because then you get him for a year and a half. We didn't have a great rotation last year, and ultimately that hurt us in the playoffs. So we would have needed him for last year's postseason. You can't trade for him now. Everyone says on Twitter, trade Florio. You don't trade your number one prospect for 2 or 3 months of a guy. And also you can't undo the sins of not getting him last year.
Mm-hmm. A guy, and also a guy that, he's gone through injuries the last year or so, right? Yeah. So just for 1 year, it would, once once the last year's trade deadline passed, I was kind of off the get mad bum trade because I was like, all right, now we don't have him we're not going to have him for 2 postseasons, so it's kind of just it's meaningless now.
So assuming we're on this topic tonight. The theme of the show is the starting rotation. Who's a guy you could see them target? I know you have no idea who's going to be good and who's going to be bad because the season hasn't started yet. But what's a name that you can see us going for mid-season?
Man, that's a good question.
We have to revisit that one.
I keep coming back to a guy like Marcus Stroman. New York guy. The Blue Jays are going to suck. I think
if he has a better year, then yeah. But I just
he struggled last year.
He was really bad last year. I think his ERA was around 5.
Yeah,
he hasn't yet turned into like the Blue Jays ace, right? That's what we thought, or people were like, this is what he's going to be. He's going to be their ace, but it hasn't really happened.
Down the stretch in 2015 and early 2016, when they went to did they make the LCS back-to-back years? Those 2 years, he was very good.
Yeah, they did make the LCS in 15 and 16.
Yeah.
I'm going to mix it in with some payroll talk because we're all wound up about that. Like, I think the Yankees payroll is like 195, just short of $200 million. But like, that's why I'm not like quite so mad about, them not going to get like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, because it's like, if health cooperates, lineup is really, really good and bullpen's really good. Like starting pitching would be what you address. And like, unless they were like really out of it or didn't see themselves making a run, Hal Steinbrenner has basically never said no to an in-season acquisition that Brian Cashman thought would help. So,
yeah, well, we'll have to see how they upgrade the starting rotation, if they will, when they will. But guys, any final thoughts? Any updates about the blog, about the website, about anything going on in the world of Bronx Bomber Ball?
We are doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, so that's a lot of fun. Lots of videos and highlights, throwback videos, players that are great, and we're Yankees. So we're counting down to opening day, and you should go follow at Bronx Bomber Ball on Instagram.
Yeah, and to add on to that, let's just say that we're going to open up our DMs for questions. Maybe we can start incorporating that in shows later down the road.
DMs
if you guys
are open.
Yeah, so it's at Bronx Bomber Ball, no spaces, characters, or anything like that. Just you have questions or comments that you want us to address on the show, send them in.
Yeah, and I think we'll start posting. I need to start posting a tweet a few hours before we record. Asking if anyone has any questions. We got a few good questions last year for the show. Hopefully, none from Cameron. Yeah, that's all we got tonight. So for Luigi, for Andrew, for G, this is the Bronx Farmer Battle Podcast. We out.